Be me. I'm a young man in my early 20s, out of school, working dead-end jobs that feel like I'm running barefoot on a treadmill made of sandpaper. It's only a matter of time before I'm ground into dust. And like everyone in that situation, I'm staying up way later than I should watching videos on life as a medieval peasant and how they kept warm during the winter or what they ate while enduring a siege during the religious wars in Europe. And what starts as a rabbit hole on Wikipedia slowly grows into something more. I'm sitting there reading about a little-known conflict in Eastern Europe that started over a land dispute between the rising class of merchants against a declining noble class. And you go in deep and you read everything there is to know. But finally it gets so late that your eyes drift to sleep and you are out. And what feels like 5 minutes later, your alarm goes off. You're awake. You have to get ready for work. You wake up, get dressed, a zombie to work, and on the elevator, while you're drooling a little bit, trying to, button up your shirt, make sure you didn't forget your keys or your wallet, your boss's boss gets in the elevator with you. And you like him. He's a cheerful fellow, that jokes about Mondays, tells you how much he appreciates your hard work, and, hey, just stick at it, it'll work out, and let him know if you need anything. He's here for you. And then he turns and looks at you with a serious expression. There's like a subject change that you're understanding. He asks in a low voice, kind of like, he's hesitant almost, if you happen to know anything about Kurt the Uncouth from West Phalia and his influence on maritime trade laws for the 11th century in Eastern Europe. And this catches you off guard. It catches you off guard for two reasons. One, because you didn't expect the question, and two, because you do know about Kurt the Uncouth from West Phalia and his influence on maritime trade laws in the 11th century. You know way more about this than any adult should ever know. And you open your mouth to take your shot. Prove to your boss's boss that you are someone that should be given trust, respect, and raises, and lots of money. But as you open your mouth, the words don't come out. You can't get them out. They're stuck in there. There's too many words trying to pour out, and you shake your head trying to get them all out, trying to see if they can at least spill out, and your boss's boss nods understandingly. After all, there's not too many people who've even heard of Kurt the Uncouth. He steps out of the elevator and leaves, and you stand there wishing that the cables that hold this metal death trap would snap and make you one with the basement floor. This was me, once upon a time. So, some loose licenses have been taken with the story, but roughly, the moral of the story is very much me. And while it may not be about Kurt the Uncouth, this is about me in writing and stories, and this is what I wanted to change. This is the reason why I started this YouTube channel, and why I wanted to talk more about this. Why I think anyone that has, a subject or a hobby that really grips them and interests them, they should consider starting it, because it really did force me to take my practice talking about what I love so much and what I'm spending a lot of time on. It made me practice talking about it, which means I have to learn how to talk about it. I have to learn how to tell stories. I have to learn how to do intros. You have to learn all this stuff. And it's funny because it all mirrors storytelling to begin with. And this is the reason why I think if you have some subject or something like this that's your side hobby or side gig or something like this, it's not necessarily to create a side hustle or an extra income or anything like that. I think it's better, though, for you if you had your 20 minutes of fame in front of the world or something that you're ready to talk about, something that you love, and you know what? Nobody else may care, but they're going to suffer through it because you've got something to say. So if that's you, what would that subject be? Let me know down in the comments below.
She is too famous to know. She is so famous that eventually someone will notice she's missing and just come find her. All she has to do is stand still. That's the kind of fame I want, where I never have to know who I am or where I'm going. Where one day Bob Hope walks up to me at a restaurant and says, "Hi, I'm Bob Hope. You probably don't remember meeting me." And I say, "Of course I do. I'll have the chicken."
I love stories. I love talking about them. I love digging in deep to understand why one story works and another doesn't. I remember reading Harry Potter and trying to figure out, precisely what words, what paragraphs, what characters, what made it so good, because it feels like such a simple story. And then this is always the funny part about stories, is that everything is completely written out for you. It's not like a mysterious Coca-Cola recipe where we're trying to figure out the hidden ingredients or anything like that. The secret to Harry Potter is out in the open. The secret to Lord of the Rings is right there in front of you. The magic. You can read it as many times as you want. You can let it all play out. But that's not always enough. Every word is written down, but it's never a simple task to copy the good parts. It's not even simple to make an adaptation. Rings of Power has definitely shown us this. And I wanted to be able to talk about this. I wanted to talk about all these different stories that I like. And I don't know when the time will come for me to stand before anyone and go on about this story or that. I don't know when my elevator speech moment will come with my boss's boss or anything like that, or if it ever will. But if it does, or when it does, depending on how you want to look at it, if you are ready, maybe that means you're more likely to have this opportunity. But for me, I want to be ready. That's why I see this channel and all these videos and research and everything as practice. So when someone comes by and says,
"Sir, excuse me, sir. I'm sorry I have to wake you. You a doctor?"
That's right.
We have some passengers that are very sick. Could you come take a look at them?
Yes. Yes, of course.
I want to be able to give my elevator speech when the moment comes. I want to be ready.
A toast to the Emperor. Long live Cusco!
And I've always admired people who can stand up and tell stories, real life stories. I remember playing D&D, with my old dungeon master, and he was just phenomenal. It was wonderful to watch him work and watch him go on and on and on without stuttering, without pausing, not ums, no ahs or anything like that. It was like he had been practicing his whole life for this moment, and all the while I knew he was just making it up. And I remember listening to a story about a birthday party for Anne Applebaum, the esteemed historian famous for her work on Soviet Russia and history and everything like that. And at this birthday party, there's a lot of people. It's a fancy-do, drinks, cocktails. It's a nice mix between high society and the intelligentsia, college professors, PhDs abound. And it gets to the point at a certain point in that party where, every time there's kind of like this pause as we're waiting for the next move, the next section of this party. And now, of course, it's time for the toast. Imagine the pressure. Everyone in this party is staring at someone. That someone, whoever will make this speech. Someone who steps in the limelight and draws all the attention, all that potential for failure. Everything is being drawn onto them. And how do you do this? How do you say this? What do you say? And before everyone, before the whole party, I can't imagine doing something like that. I want to be able to, but I can't imagine it. But apparently, in this story, the historian, another historian, Niall Ferguson, can. So imagine someone else walking onto the stage, walking into the middle of this party, taking the spotlight. They clink their little glasses, they stand and smile, raise the glass, and begin to speak. And what they're saying is just brilliant. Somehow they managed to talk and make it endearing, letting you believe that they are the most down-to-earth person, yet also at the same time, someone who deserves the spotlight, someone who deserves your attention. They praise the host, the food, the drinks, the guests. The fact that you're here means you're great, and you're listening to this, and you're like, maybe I am great. I didn't think so, but now that he mentions it, maybe I am. This is an amazing gathering. There's a self-deprecating joke, a funny story about trying to find parking, or a witticism by the cab drivers. They were stepping out onto the street, and how about that weather? All of this is going on. And then they begin the toast, praising the host, Anne Applebaum, and all of her work, showing why she deserves every bit of praise and has earned it, that everyone here should be grateful to enjoy the evening. It's a great speech, endearing, praiseworthy itself, and most important of all, it's effortless. It's as easy as drinking. The words flow out of, Niall Ferguson with that great Scottish brogue, with charm, maxed out charisma. The speech ends and it's not too long, not too short. There's a great applause and everyone drinks to the health of the host. Best of all, the party goes on. It revitalizes everyone. Everyone here is now a little bit more appreciative of being there. They're appreciative of their host. And most important of all, Niall Ferguson has this moment. Imagine being able to do that, to jump up in there, jump in front of this party and do something like that, pull out that amazing party trick. It's awesome. I would love to be able to do that. I don't think anytime soon, but I would love to. You're going up there sounds terrifying, but having gone up there and having done it and having done it so well seems like it would be amazing. And, perhaps my moment will come. We'll see. Being prepared and doing all this practice, about stories and everything will ensure my hope, my dream one day is that at the moment in that elevator, when somebody's asking about Kurt the Uncouth and maritime trade laws in the 11th century in Eastern Europe, we'll see. In the meantime, and again, this is not just try and persuade anyone that they should try and side gig their hobby and try and make more money and ruin what they love about it, but more to find a way to do your hobby and do it well and to be able to show that to someone else, to take what you've been working on. I've been painting Warhammer 40K minifigures, and then to be able to communicate that in a way that doesn't really make people roll their eyes like, oh, you're one of those nerds. It's like, no. This is what I love about it, and I can actually tell you. So that way everyone who listens to you is able to go like, you know what? Maybe I'm missing out. Maybe I misjudged it. That's what I want to be able to do. I want to have that power, anything like that, of course. Hopefully to use it for good, but we'll have to see. And so, yeah, let me know what you guys think. Let me know if you were going to give, your elevator speech or anything like that, whether it's about cooking, Warhammer, Green Lantern lore, encyclopedic knowledge about terrible, isekais or anything like that. Let me know what you would want to do if you were able to pick something like this. And again, this is just encouragement to put it out there, because I never thought, I've written a little bit of, my own thoughts, my own little tidbits or anything like that, but never actually knowing that I will never actually throw it in front of an audience. And it's one of those things where it's the audience that really does change it. Even if it's a small audience, even if it's an audience of one, the fact that you're willing to get up there and make that speech is what makes all the difference. And I think it really takes it. It really changes it, makes you learn it in a way that I've never had to learn it before. And it's been really fun. So, but yeah, let me know what you guys think. I'm interested to hear about it, and post it down in the comments below, and I'll see you in the next. I really appreciate it. I'm Jeff Cassidy, and this is Fiction Applied.